Hi guys, in this video I'm going to continue my Sicilian series by providing a repertoire for white against the Sicilian, because I know a lot of players find it tricky to play against because of all the theoretical lines. And in this one I'm going to do the Najdorf, and a good line against the Najdorf, which I have played a lot in my career, and it's really easy to learn for white. You just play the same sort of moves and you get a really good position. So it starts off e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, and knight a6. So this is the start of the Najdorf. And now the move I really like to play is g3 here. And h3 is an interesting idea because it goes into sort of the g3. It's sort of like g3, but you try to save the tempo by going g4 straight away. And this is interesting because in this g3 line you'll see later that what white tries to do is he castle as he goes h3, then eventually goes g4 and then f4, because he swings this knight around to g3. And I'm trying to play h3 and then g4 in one move. I have looked at this, but I don't think it's as good, because if you play g4 this early on, then h5 you can be hit by things like h5 and your position just seems like it's overstretched basically, and yeah, it gets really weak. So I just played g3 instead, and now e5. It's a typical Najdorf move, and now what we do is we drop the knight back to e2. And the thing of this line is you always put your knight back to e2. You can play against the dragon as well. So against g6 you can play g3 and play it this way, but it's most effective against the Najdorf. If they play, say, knight c6, which I'm pretty sure they won't, but you always want to drop this knight back to e2 whenever it's being attacked. So that's the main theme. So after e5 you go knight e2, and then say bishop e7, bishop g2, castles, castles, and now they may continue development of bishop e6, and then we can play h3. So we want to play g4, knight into g3. b5 might be played. This is fine, we don't need to bother any a3. Any a3 moves. So they go b4, we can just stick our knight on d5. So we go g4 now. Now we're ready to put our knight on g3, and we're going to have really good squares just here for our knights on d5 and f5. So now if black continues knight d7, we can play knight g3, and then maybe b4. We go knight d5, and yeah, I really like playing this as white. It's very simple. You know, you do the same development on the king side. You go h3, g4. You bring this knight around to g3. And whenever this knight gets attacked, you can just stick it in on d5. And this is why it's better against the Najdorf. The dragon, they have a pawn on g6, which is still not a problem, but it can be annoying in putting the knight on f5. But yeah, it also works against g6. I do play against g6 every now and then, but I think the main line, Yugoslav, which I showed in my dragon video, is a much more effective way of actually beating the dragon, and this is a really nice way to take on the Najdorf, because of a lot of Najdorf players don't know this line, so they don't really know what they're doing against it. All these moves I've just played are just what look most logical, just developing moves, and now when it gets to this sort of stage, they've got to start thinking by themselves, not what they may have been used to or played before in a game, what their coach has told them. It's just them against you now. And you should have an advantage, because you know what you're going to do here. You're going to put your king on h1. The reason you put your king on h1 is because your bishop tends to come to e3. But if you go king h2, there might be some sacks on g4, and knight takes g4. Then it's going to be like, you can imagine, after knight takes g4 is going to be attacking the bishop and the king, because this pawn is going to go to f4, so this bishop's always going to be weak. And I know that's sort of hard to put in your head, but yeah, hope my crazy arrows help that. So after knight d5, black tends to take in the centre, take the knight off. Obviously knight takes is just losing, because after pawn takes the bishop's stuck, and if the bishop takes tends to be played, and then we just take back our pawn. And what we're going to do is we can put our bishop on e3, we can play f4, put our king on h1 to get out of any checks. Bishop e3 is not important though. If you don't need to play it, then I wouldn't play it immediately. I would play king h1 first and then just get f4 going. and then eventually we're going to get the bishop into this square and line up with the queen and start attacking the king after g5's played. This is also another point in knight g3. You can play g5 and the knight can't come to h5, has to go back, and we can play h4. So okay, so black might continue here with rook c8, putting pressure against the c2 pawn. And this might be a time where you want to develop the bishop, so you can put your rook on c1 just to defend the pawn. Or you could try counter-attack with g5. Depends how much of a risk to take you. You could try something like g5 and knight e8, h4, protecting the pawn. And now you're ready to start putting your bishop in on this square, or you could put your bishop in on h3. Have a really nice diagonal here. So for example, with queen c7, we can either put our knight on f5 to attack the bishop, and then the bishop has to go back, or we can even play something like bishop h3 first, which I think is a good idea, pinning the knight against the rook, and now black can't take on c2. And well, it's really hard for black to actually unravel his position here. All these pieces are stuck, and we're going to put our knight in on f5, and then again the bishop's got to retreat. We can even bring the queen in, and just to make things worse, we can put the bishop on e3, and that could potentially stop little things. For example, queen c5 might be played. Try to put pressure on the d5 pawn. Now the bishop is protecting it, and bring knights. Actually, no, queen c5 is loser. Sorry, because you got to still defend the knight. So say they go queen b7 instead. Try to put pressure on the pawn. Now there's not as much pressure on c2. We can just put a knight in on f5, something like this, and then the bishop's probably going to drop back. And now this pawn's getting pretty weak, and then this knight's still tied down, and if this knight can't get out, this rook can't get out, this bishop looks like it could come out this way, where it looks pretty decent. The reason I sort of delay f4 a little bit, because if you start playing f4, well, you can play a check now, and black gets pretty active, and then say king h2. I'm playing king h2 this time around because I don't want the queen on the same diagonal as the king. And then say something like this happens, takes, and then knight into e5. And black can always use this e5 square, which is a common theme in the Najdorf. So I wouldn't rush to play f4. It gets black very active pretty quickly. So in this position, black is he's pretty tied down, and white can build on this. He can now start pushing with h5, get g6 in, or you could do this now. If you want, you can just play h6 now, so the knight's not getting in the way of any g6 moves. And also, maybe knight f5 is actually helping him, because think about it, the bishop looks really well placed on b6, because if this knight stays and defends his pawn, then the bishop can go into b6 and it's got a really nice diagonal. So maybe I'll just be patient. You're just placing, say, let's go h5 here. And now we're going to play g6, and g6 is going to cause black a lot of problems, because if they ever take the f pawn, the bishop can come into e6. We're going to have the queen coming into g4, and we've got all our pieces ready, except this rook. All these pieces are all coming towards black's king, and yeah, black's position is very passive here. And at any point we can put our knight in on f5 and get a tempo on the bishop, force the bishop back, and play something like g6 if we need to. Say if the knight was it can't move there, but if the knight was ever to move to c7 when this knight was protected, knight f5 might be a good idea. Take away the bishop and then take on d6. So this line is pretty straightforward. You just do the same sort of slow expansion on the king side. You get your pieces over to this side as well, and yeah, just tap the black king, and you really squash black's position. And a lot of players aren't used to playing against this sort of opening. Like black might play something like rook c5 now. Looks like an interesting idea. And now I was wondering, queen f3 looks like a good move. Although as long as you don't allow knight b6. Queen v3. Yeah, this works. Queen f3. They take on c2. Who cares? It's the pawn. We go g6. We can start attacking. Queen f3 is working because now queen can never take the pawn because bishop's still attacking the knight. rook takes pawn, bishop takes knight, queen takes rook, and we are winning. And so the way to try capture this weak pawn is, say they go knight d5 instead. Then we actually have a nice tactic here after bishop e3, attacking the rook, so the queen and knight can't take, so we're going to take the rook. And if the rook takes, we can take the knight, and then after the queen takes the bishop, we can capture the rook again. So after bishop e3, black probably going to have to take on c2, and we don't mind losing these pawns. Well, c and b pawn, he's not coming around the back. Now we can get a really nice position, so g6, as long as you just got to watch out for any rook discovered attacks. We can put our queen on e4, so we should be fine. So here I'd play g6, and it's likely he'll probably take with his f pawn. We can play a check, protecting our pawn. King moves. Now we go queen to e4, attacking the rook. Rook takes, and then we can take on g6 again. And now say if h6, trying to stop us taking here and close up the position a little bit. We're always going to be looking at sacrificing here, so we can play something like king g2, rook h1, and just sack on h6. So they go knight f6 now. Seems like the most obvious choice. I wonder whether we can get away with just playing. Queen h4 here. There might be some attack. Yeah, it's going to be knight takes d5. It's going to be annoying. Okay, maybe we should stop. We should just stop knight f6 first. Let's just put our knight on h5 first. So now, because this knight f6 move is actually quite annoying. So stop that knight coming to f6, and now this knight g5 move is actually knight h5 move is actually pretty powerful. Say if knight came to c7, trying to win this pawn. Well, we can always take on b6 if we don't think we're going to be able to keep it. But a move that looks really good here, I'd play bishop f7 first, and then after knight takes, we can take on h6. Looks like black is getting mated. Obviously pawn takes is checkmate, and we're threatening checkmate. And the reason I played this bishop f7 move first is if we take on h6, now they can take on e6, defend the pawn, and then I can't recapture knight because there's a pin on my queen. So I take on. Well, you're never going to get all this in a game. I was going to say that now, but I'm just trying to show you the potential in this line. What am I doing? Bishop f7. Okay, now we're threatening bishop takes h6, and so they take here, we take here. Anyway, to protect this, I have to play something like bishop f6, and we are almost there. We can even have like crazy moves like queen all the way back to h1, and knight against the king because we're pinning the knight against the queen. And this might actually just do it. This might just work. Well, actually, bishop f6, you can just take here if you want to. You can just take on f6 because obviously knight can't take because of the pin against the queen, and if pawn takes, we can take the rook. We just chop the rook off and we threaten checkmate. So then black would have to play something like takes on h6 instead. Now we could be a little crazy here, go all the way back to h1, which looks pretty stylish. Does it work? King looks pretty dangerous. Well, just to be simple, we could just take on d5, and we're just a piece up for 2 pawns with a really good attack. So white's winning here. I'm curious to see whether this is winning as well. Queen h1, attacking a pawn. King has to go to g7. Okay, well we can take on d5 again if we want to. We can play a check. Yeah, just check, and now king has to get back in the corner. Check. King up, and then we just get queen. And yeah, so we've won this way as well. Yeah, that's a pretty cool way to win too. We can just play queen all the way back to h1, threatening to take on h6. See, that's a sort of demonstration. I tried to make the video a little longer because of there really isn't much theory involved in this line, which is the great thing about it. You just play the same idea the whole way around. Against pretty much any move, against any setup. They castle is just a very simple move. Say they go b5 first here, we're still going to go h3. They go whatever they go b4, we put our knight on there. They go bishop b7. It's fine. g4. They think they're going to get enough pieces to attack this pawn. We can get our knight to g3. And they've got enough pieces to attack this pawn. You know, we can start just getting our king out the way. So king h1, preparing any f4 ideas, or just g5. You can always play g5 and kick this knight if it's getting too much on this pawn. But as soon as they play this, we can stick our knight in d5, and they're never going to win this e4 pawn unless you play a silly move or something. So yeah, I mean, it's very simple. It's very easy. It doesn't matter what black plays. If he goes this way with his bishop, or the other way, or so if he puts his bishop like this. Wait a minute. Yeah, bishop e6. Say if he plays something like bishop e6, and like we said before, g4, and then if you go something like h5, and this is fine. We can just push on with g5, and then knight back's not going to be good because he's got h4, and the knight's going to get locked out of the game. So knight's going to come back this way, h4, knight c6, knight g3. Now we're attacking this pawn, so they're going to have to play something like g6. And actually, this is a lot better than before. Now I can put bishop on e3, and then after taking that b4, knight into d5, and eventually I'm going to just sack on h5 here and get the queen into h5. And this is looking really dangerous, for black. So yeah, so I pretty much showed you a really good line against Najdorf. I've had a lot of success with this line, so I hope it can work for you as well. One thing you do have to be careful of is one annoying idea, I'll say not in this line, is any knight c6 ideas, of the idea of coming around this way. Because if you put your bishop on e3 too early when you don't need to, they're going to play something like knight a5, knight into c4, and they're going to attack the bishop and this pawn, and you'll feel stupid retreating the bishop back. So I'd be careful not to bring the bishop out too early, because it doesn't do that much on e3. It's not needed. After knight c6, we can play knight g3. Now if they decide to go knight e5, well, they're looking pretty stupid because they can go into c4, but they're not threatening anything yet. So after knight a4, we can just continue our plan with g5 and h4, or stick a knight in f5 here. You know, it really depends on which way you want to go. You know, after as soon as they play b4, we can go knight into d5. I'd personally play g5 myself. Knight goes back, h4, and now we can put our knight in f5. So they go b5, we put our knight in d5, get our knight in f5, and then this bishop's really weak. And as soon as they come in here, we can just kick it away. You know, it's not a problem. So yeah, this is the line I recommend against the Najdorf. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or what to do against a certain setup that black comes up with against you, then I'll be happy to answer your questions. Just leave a comment in the video, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.